All right. It looks like we are live for our conversation. Miles, you there?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you, but it looks like your face is frozen, but we can hear you. Hopefully everything catches up. So,
Let me do this. Let me refresh. All right. Am I back?
you're back.
All right. Excellent.
Now, I'm not sure if this is delayed. I'm trying to update it on the Africa Week page to make sure that we're live. But it says that we're live, and I don't see us on the Africa Week page though.
I think we're live, but I see. I think I keep getting frozen.
Yeah, here we go. It is live. I think they have two. Okay, here we are live. Okay, delayed. I'm trying to update it on the Africa Week page to make sure that we're live. Okay, we are live. It's just a slight delay. All
Okay.
right.
No problem.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Sorry for those technical difficulties. My name is Kamal Malik Grimes, and we have Miles Henderson. Hopefully, we have another brother calling in to join the call and talk about this discussion with you all today. So today we have a discussion on the Marcus Garvey bronze sculpture project, and we're using the hashtag Garvey goes home for this project. So I want to allow. I'll talk a little bit about the project starting off and how it was conceived and the goals, and then I'll let Miles introduce himself and I'll introduce myself. But the goals of the Marcus Garvey sculpture project, the simple goal is to erect a statue of Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. Preferably, we would erect a statue at the African Union headquarters in the main hall, Nelson Mandela Hall. And so the way this project got started was our mentor and friend, Mr. Yao Davis, executive director of the Pan African Technical Association, who he's done several projects in Ethiopia. He lives part of the year in Ethiopia, and um, he was speaking with. He was at the African Union. He was speaking with one of the representatives in the African Union. Um, Brother Ambassador Kwesi Kwarte of Ghana, who's one of the high officials in the African Union, and Brother Kwarte, um, he he suggested that we erect a statue of Marcus Garvey in the African Union. So if in the African Union there is a statue of Haile Selassie, uh, Emperor of Ethiopia, and Kwame Nkrumah. And the Kwame Nkrumah statue was the first one that was built, and then Haile Selassie was the second one, and that was erected last year. And these were, big players within this realm of Pan Africanism and African unity. But Mr. Garvey, Marcus Garvey, was one of Kwame Nkrumah's primary influences while he was here in the States. Kwame Nkrumah lived in Harlem, and um, in the 20s and 30s, and that there were a lot of Garveyites, people who were members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, which was Mr. Garvey's organization, and also just sympathizers and Pan-Africanists galore. And so Kwame Nkrumah, he was cultivated in that type of environment, and those ideas impacted him so much so that on the flag of Ghana, he put a black star. And he actually started his own Black Star shipping company, which is a direct influence of Garvey, who had the Black Star line, which was an effort to bring trained African people from the diaspora back to the continent to help develop the continent industrially and in terms of enterprise, in terms of decolonization, and in terms of independent self-determination and enterprise. So that is the backdrop. And another connection that Mr. Garvey has with, so that's a connection that he has with Kwame Nkrumah, among others. But in terms of Haile Selassie, you know, uh, Mr. Garvey, he is known to have prophesied the coronation of Haile Selassie and showing the significance for the diaspora. He was mentioned that he said, "Look to Africa, and a king will be crowned, and that will signal, Africa's redemption." And soon after that, some years later, Haile Selassie was crowned king, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. All of these various titles, and there was so many world dignitaries from Europe and um, parts of Asia that came and actually, bowed before the emperor and gave him homage. And this is in 1930, during the heyday of European colonization. At this point, all of Africa is colonized. So there's a little bit of connection there. We call Mr. Garvey the grandfather of Pan-Africanism, because even though he wasn't there at the table formulating the African Union or the Organization of African Unity, it was his writings, his speeches, his organizing that laid the foundation. So there's a generation of people supporting him. Many studied under him, some of the great African leaders, the great African independence leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, like I said earlier, Jomo Kenyatta, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and some of the early ones. They were students of Garvey. So that's the backdrop. Miles, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so you had a little trouble with your video.
Yeah, so sorry about this technical issue video wise, and so I might just have to be on audio. I'll keep kind of switching back and forth to see if we can kind of get the video back up. But right now, I'll kind of just be on audio if that's all right.
Yeah, that's all right. So, Miles, I gave a little bit of background, and what I want you to do is just, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to work with the Marcus Garvey Bronze Sculpture Project.
Okay, sure. So as Kamal mentioned, I'm Miles Henderson, and I would say for myself, I'm a young, budgeting, Pan-Africanist. As I went through undergrad, studying international studies at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh, I had minored in Pan-African studies as well, and that really had, opened my eyes up to a lot of different things, notably Pan-Africanism, as I got in contact with Marcus Garvey's works. That really opened up, my thought process as well. And so I began to do different organizing on campus and post campus in terms of kind of creating Black student publications. And from there, I was able to spend some time abroad in Ghana, as well as in Brazil, interacting with Afro-Brazilians, and kind of began to just shape and piece together the different pieces of the African diaspora in the continent as well. And then one of the defining moments was the time I spent as an intern at the African Union. It was actually here, it was the first place on my avatar where I met Dr. Julius Garvey, the son of Marcus Garvey. And from there, it's kind of just has been a continuation of understanding the importance of Marcus Garvey's legacy, and connecting with those who find that work important. Especially in times like these, when I think a lot of Black people all over the world are looking for leadership and looking kind of for what happens next or what do we do. The Honorable Marcus Garvey really showcased and highlighted a lot of those different avenues with the blueprint that he laid out. So with that being said, the connections to Kamal, as well as Mr. Yao Davis, I was able to spend some time with him in Ghana as well. Is kind of how this endeavor was able to kind of get me connected. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, most definitely. That was a good answer to the question. Am I frozen?
You're not frozen for me.
Okay, it was frozen for a second. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Kamal Malik Grimes, and I'm also a Pan-Africanist. I met Dr. Julius Garvey in 2013 in Ethiopia, and we were participating in a conference and a tour of the country. The conference was called the Bible and Its African Roots Conference, and we traveled to Lalibela, Aksum, Bahadar, Gondar, and also some of us made a side trip to Shashamane. And we had a great, a wonderful experience in Ethiopia, and it opened us up for all the work that I've been doing since then. At that trip, at that conference, Brother Yao Davis, he provided me with a book called The Brown Condor, and it was a story of a brother named John Robinson, who was a pilot in the 1930s, who actually he was an African American pilot, a graduate of Tuskegee, and uh, he he went to Ethiopia during the time of the Italian invasion, and he led the fledgling Ethiopian Air Corps. So Italians, they had, modern planes that were dropping bombs and tear gas. Ethiopia, they had a handful of older planes and didn't have any military capability. However, they needed people to fly these planes in order to deliver messages and things like that. So Robinson, he was a pilot, and he was one of the only African Americans who actually got a chance to go over to Ethiopia, because before that, how you doing, sister? I think I think Brother Yao sent out the link to a bunch of people. That was the link for the panelists, not the participants. So I told him that, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. That happens sometimes. And so he was flying. I'm sorry about that. So many African Americans were upset that Italy invaded Ethiopia, because Ethiopia was the last colony. Ethiopia was the last independent spot of in Africa, right? And the whole African world rose up once they believed that the last independent land in Africa was going to be taken. And so many people signed up to fight. They protested and sent donations, but they were blocked by the State Department and others from reaching Ethiopia to actually fight in defense of Ethiopia. However, John Robinson was one that actually went, and he flew. So good. Just to wrap that part up, we were able to erect a statue of John Robinson in Ethiopia in 2016, and we're utilizing the same sculptor to design the Marcus Garvey bronze sculpture. So just to let you all know, we have done this before. Erected a statue of African diasporan hero in Ethiopia, and this is the second time that we're going to be doing this. And so that's just a little bit of a background. But we do want to get into some of the questions. So without further ado, I want to ask the basic question. What is the goal of the Marcus Garvey Bronze Project? And why is the Marcus Garvey Bronze Project so important? So Miles, if you want to
Yeah,
get
sure.
into that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again, Kamal. Um, like we had kind of said before, it's an honor to kind of be on the show and get an opportunity to really showcase Marcus Garvey and all the work that he's done and really put him in his rightful place, on the African continent. So, with that being said, uh, the goal, within the Marcus Garvey Bronze Project is to erect a statue of Marcus Garvey in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. As we noted before, we are looking to kind of have it be erected in the African on the African Union. But it should be noted as well that this project is endorsed by the Garvey estate, and this would be the first ever statue endorsed by the Garvey estate of Marcus Garvey on the African continent. And even going further than that, one of the most powerful things and influence of Marcus Garvey is that he led the largest mass movement of Black people all over the world within modern history. Whether or not we're looking at his newspaper Negro World, or we're looking at his organization, the UNIA, which boasted, membership within the millions, transnational membership on the continent, membership in Europe, Caribbean, Latin America, and the U.S. He had the largest mass movement of Black people in modern history, and so now one of the most interesting things when you study the history of Marcus Garvey, he was never able to set foot on African soil. So now, with the Marcus Garvey Bronze Project, Garvey Goes Home, hashtag Garvey Goes Home, this is an opportunity for us to really bring Marcus Garvey home symbolically, especially as it relates to the times we're in, to kind of to be the entering of a new era, as it relates to kind of Pan-African thought, because even if you look at right now, where we are at, we are in a global Pan-African movement, that many of us, we may not realize it, but Black people all over the world, we are waking up, we're engaging with the different atrocities going on, we're seeing the oppression, we're feeling the oppression, we're feeling, kind of the weight of different components of life wherever we may find ourselves, and we're connecting all over. So, in short, the project is really centering Marcus Garvey's legacy to kind of provide a light moving forward.
Excellent. And that leads us right into the next topic is um, in addition to the sculpture project, do we have any other activities associated with the installation ceremony? And I'll take a stab at that one. Yes, we have other activities associated. So not only are we building the statue, and we're transporting the statue and erecting the statue, but there's going to be an unveiling. We are planning an unveiling ceremony that will be held at the African Union or wherever we're able to erect the statue. And we're going to be inviting, dignitaries and respected people to this event. We have big plans of having a concert, and we're in works with so many different people. I don't want to, give too many details at this time because we're at the early stages. But we are working directly with Dr. Julius Garvey, and so this is an effort by Dr. Julius Garvey and the Marcus Garvey Bronze Coordinating Committee, which is headed up by the Pan African Technical Association and an organization called the Whirlwind. Specifically, their branch, Whirlwind is a parent company, but specifically their Strictly Roots branch, which is a water company based out of Jamaica. And so these are the different bodies that are working, on this effort, and we need more hands on deck. We have a small group of people, about 7 or 8, and we're looking to bring more people onto the team. In terms of other events associated with the installation ceremony, we're planning a tour of Ethiopia, and also we're looking to bring a lot of people from obviously United States, but we're targeting Jamaica, which is Marcus Garvey's birthplace. For those that don't know Marcus Garvey, he is the first national hero of Jamaica. And so we are working closely with the Jamaican diaspora and as well to make sure that this effort, pays homage and does a great service to Dr. Garvey's legacy, and that we can bridge the gap between Jamaica and Ethiopia. Another question that we had. Um, okay, so let me backtrack. Let me give you all some specifics. So the tour next year is going to be from August 10th to August 18th. We're going to be going to Ethiopia and traveling to some of the sites, some of the historic sites, and then the trip will culminate in the unveiling ceremony. Marcus Garvey's birthday is August 17th, which also happens to be the birthday of the Emperor Menelik, who famously defeated the Italians in the Battle of Ottawa in 1896, which preserved Ethiopian sovereignty. Oh, thank you, Sister Imani, um, for your comments. Yeah, so we're looking to erect the statue next August 17th. So that's our goal. So reach out. Please visit marcusgarveybronze.com. That is MarcusGarveybronze.com, and where you can, learn more about the project, and also you can donate. So we are in a fundraising campaign. We have to raise the funds to create the statue. We are well on our way, and we need support. And so you can do that by going to marcusgarveybronze.com, and you can donate on the website. Um, Miles, if you do have a flyer at some point, it would be good if you could show that flyer to the people. That would be great. And we just appreciate any support that you all can give us. This is an effort. It's not necessarily you giving us support; it's you supporting yourselves. This is a gift from the African diaspora to the continent, and we want the African Union to take us seriously as the sixth region of Africa. They say that we're the sixth region, and we need them to take that seriously. So we have to take ourselves seriously, and so us reviewing the history and realizing that Pan-Africanism is something that was really born in the West, and it was popularized by people like Mr. Garvey. I keep saying Dr. Garvey because we're working with his son, Dr. Garvey, and Marcus Garvey is so prestigious that you just want to call him Doctor. But yes, the Honorable Marcus Garvey. And he is essentially the grandfather of Pan-Africanism. He taught a lot of people in the world the importance of sovereignty. He gave us a flag, the red, black, and green flag. That's a flag for all African people, regardless of your specific nationality. So during a time of European colonialism and colonization of Africa, Garvey was preaching and working for independence and sovereignty, national governments, and so he's the father of African nationalism, Pan-African nationalism. And so the African Union, all the independent countries in Africa, they're indebted to Marcus Garvey. Many flags in Africa have the red, black, and green as a homage to Marcus Garvey. And yeah, his paper, and this is the last thing I'll say before we go to the next question. His paper, The Negro World, was banned, by a lot of colonial governments, and they had to be smuggled in because he was preaching independence and freeing ourselves from Europeans at a time when that was unpopular, right? So.
It's funny you say that, Kamal. I was just doing some research last night on the Negro World, and I saw an excerpt about some Kenyan freedom fighters. And essentially, what they would do, they would all be huddled over a copy of the Negro World, reading it, and just like off of that, memorizing what was literally said in the paper to kind of motivate them to go into like their various colonial struggles. And so I think that just speaks on the impact and kind of just the energy that was provided, from those insights in Negro World in that paper.
And it also speaks to the global networks that were being created, forged. There's a question that leads us to this question, Miles. Perfect. The height of the Garvey movement was around 100 years ago, essentially. And so Mr. Garvey has a speech called Look for Me in the Whirlwind, where he talks about how even though his physical body was going to perish, he will come back, as um, essentially in as a natural force, a whirlwind. The tide is already set, and so whether he's here or not, the what can we say? It's like a domino effect. The domino effect has already taken place, and we are living in the whirlwind 100 years later. So what does that mean to you, to be living in the whirlwind 100 years later? And what do you alluded to it just earlier, but what do you see as very important about this specific time right now, 100 years after the height of the Garvey movement?
Well, I really think that the timing of where we're at and just some of the parallels between that time period and the time period we're in now, geopolitical uncertainty was very, very much, tensions were high. I believe there was definitely some global conflicts that were beginning to erupt during that time. Take a look at kind of the geopolitical situation now. Interesting parallels. There was the Spanish flu. When you look back at pictures of what was going on during the 1920s, you see people in masks, in black and white photos. And then now when you look up 2020, 100 years later, people are in masks, so just in terms of some of those interesting little quirks about the time period. And I think, that's not by accident, that's not by coincidence. 100 years now since kind of the ideas of Marcus Garvey have kind of been laid. It's interesting because I think that during the 1960s and some of the other movements, yes, homage was paid, but there was a deliberate movement by powers that be to kind of oppress the progress and the methods and the ideologies, that Garveyism and his followers were really, pushing forward. So now, as we're kind of arriving in the 2020, I think you're seeing a re-emergence of a lot of that thought. You're seeing a re-emergence and a re-identification with Garveyism, especially now as we're developing more global networks, as we're starting to have more conversations and interactions with Black people all over the world, wherever they may find themselves. We are now really starting to enter into a new phase of the Pan-African movement. And yes, Kamal, as I kind of alluded before, we are in a global Pan-African movement right now. Black Lives Matter, the movement in terms of how many people are activated all over the world to really engage on behalf of themselves is, is Pan-African in nature. I don't think that there's been something in recent memory where you could look and see engagement in Brazil at the same time as Black engagement in Europe, in the US, all these different locales and that activation being there. So now when we kind of talk about that global, that global movement, you have to honor the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and you have to really be able to put his thoughts and his insights at the forefront. Because I think that, what's really important is that, yes, that energy and that movement can be there, but if there's not that direction, if that blueprint isn't being followed, then it's all for naught. And so I think that's one of the very, very important reasons why it's so important to uplift, the leaders who did that work and laid that foundation kind of moving forward.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that insight, Miles. And I think also that goes into the legacy of Garvey. And let's break down some of his ideologies for people who don't know. Some of the most important ones are self-reliance, self-determination, independence, sovereignty, enterprise, alike. Garvey was known for saying, "Why join somebody else's thing when we can build our own thing?" Essentially, and you see a resurgence of those ideas today, in terms of the Buy Black movement, the Support Black Businesses movement. Uh, that right now, I think you're seeing a large push within the conversation that you didn't hear about much during the Civil Rights Movement, which was economic justice. And right now, and that was what Garvey was about, was economic justice, and not in the sense of uh, getting reparations or affirmative action, although those things are still on the table. We do believe in those. At the same time, we don't wait for things like that. We have to get started right now where we are. And so I think that's one of the strongest legacies of Garvey, is that
Absolutely.
we have to get started where we are. Other people may be responsible for putting us in this position, but we're responsible for getting ourselves out. And so, when you look at the legacy of Marcus Garvey, he had several. The organization Universal Negro Improvement Association had several businesses, several enterprises, in every city that they found themselves. They were working to build. They had printing presses, and they had tailors, and they had movie theaters and grocery stores, and uh, a shipping line. And so that's the legacy that we need. We need to take that legacy and say, okay, African Union, we need to not rely so much on um, we need to not rely so much on the European Union, or the World Bank, or foreign agencies to fund what we're doing. And so this effort to build the statue, we're not asking for money from um, United States government or any large corporations. We're pooling from the people, and hopefully we can get some Black businesses to support. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that any individuals or businesses that donate $1,000 will get their name on the plaque. And so you have a chance to be a part of history. When people go to the African Union and they visit the African Union and they're in the main hall, they'll see the statue of Garvey. They may walk up and read the plaque, and if they see your name or your company's name, um, that's a legacy that can't be taken away. Um, uh, so, all right.
Thanks so much for that, Kamal. That's very, very powerful. I only wanted to add one little thing onto that in terms of just some of the ideologies, and I think this really sums it up really well. One of Garvey's one of Marcus Garvey's rallying cries was "Africa for the Africans." And I don't think it gets any simpler, than that to understand that thought process. Africa for the Africans. Understanding that yes, as a sixth region, we are part of the African narrative and African story, and that's really where a lot of the development enterprise and kind of has to occur.
Yes, and the only thing I would add to that, Miles, is he said Africa for the Africans, and the second half of that is those at home and abroad.
Yes, sir.
Because unfortunately, many people in the diaspora are not viewed as Africans by some people on the continent, and many people in the diaspora don't view themselves as Africans as well. And so that has to change. Our ancestors didn't voluntarily come here on a cruise ship. We didn't just give up our identity and our heritage. That's a choice. If people want to identify more with America and with this land, or Jamaica, I mean, that's their choice that they can. But for those of us who still have that connection and want to strengthen that connection to our roots in Africa, that's a choice that we can make as well. And so no one can tell us that we are not African just
Right.
because we weren't born there. And Kwame Nkrumah's quote, one of his famous quotes is, "I'm not African because I was born in Africa, but I'm African because Africa was born in me." And so you have many people born on the continent of Africa, but within their mind, heart, and soul, they're in Europe somewhere. And so You have many people who are born in Europe or in the United States. However, their heart and soul lies in the continent. And so this project is for those people whose heart and soul lies in the continent and know that our destiny rests with the continent and it's not separate from that. And I
That's well
think that's
said.
very important and what we need to keep in mind. I think as the conversation goes in different directions, I want to bring us back. I want to bring us back a bit right now uh, for the project and some of the logistics of the project. Okay, so just to break down a little bit of the project, like I said, in 2016, the Pan African Technical Association erected a statue of Colonel John Robinson in Ethiopia at the National Archives and Library Association. And this is, this Garvey project is a bigger project, a larger location, but it's the same format, if you will. We have the same sculptor, a brother by the name of Nigel Benz, and you can look him up, NijelBinns. He's done several sculptures. I mean, he's been doing this for probably 40 years, and he, if later in the second, Miles, I'd like for you to show the prototype of what the Garvey bust is going to look like, if you can do that, just so that people can get a glimpse of what it's going to look like. Yes, yeah, Africa for the Africans, and not the so yeah, that's the sculptor. In terms of the cost for the sculpture, it's going to take us about $40,000 to raise to create the sculpture and transport it to Ethiopia. So that's primarily what we're funding for. But in order to have the entire ceremony uh, and develop the tour and all of the other incidentals, the total cost we're looking at around $90,000. So that's our target number to raise, just so you all know. At this point, we've raised about $6,000 or $7,000, and we have a lot of work to do, you know. And so, like I said, please visit marcusgarveybronze.com and make your donation. You can also go directly to Pan African Technical Association's website, and you can make a tax deductible donation to that nonprofit organization, and just specify that it's for the Marcus Garvey Bronze. So that website is pataus.org. So whether you go to marcusgarveybronze.com or pataus.org, those are two ways to make your contribution. You can also send a check in the mail but everything is explained on the website. So I would be remiss if I didn't repeat that information. So now let's go to another question. Why is it important for Marcus Garvey to be honored in Ethiopia? Miles, if you can let the people know that, why Ethiopia? Um, what's special about Ethiopia?
So it seems my camera started giving me some issues again. I had a pretty good run with it to be able to have the camera on, and I actually wanted to show a book that I think does a good job of kind of highlighting some of those concepts. And this is actually per Kamal's recommendation. So The Sons of Sheba's Race is a great book that actually shed some light on this. And there was a quote that I wanted to share from the text that I think just kind of gives a nice, you know, a nice overview of that question. You know, well, you know what? Maybe I will just kind of paraphrase it as opposed to taking up too much time trying to recover that. But essentially, as I understood it, Ethiopianism was a major symbolic value, to Garveyism and to the movement that Marcus Garvey was kind of endeavoring on. It has to kind of be, understood that within the diaspora, for African Americans, Ethiopia was kind of a almost a mystical type of place, especially as it was referenced throughout the Bible and Black Christendom, especially as you look at kind of the Bible Belt. Ethiopia had some very specific mentions in the Bible. And so now with that being said, when African Americans were looking to kind of engage uh, with African sovereignty, that's what they looked to. And so that was kind of a strong understanding or beginnings of understanding of the African continent outside of the diaspora itself. That was one of the first viewpoints when those born outside of the continent were looking to greatness. We're looking to strong history, strong understanding of self, and great builders of civilization. The common thread during that time, the 1900s into the 1920s, was to look towards Ethiopia. It also should be noted that Ethiopia was also understood as a moniker for the entire, African populace, the entire African peoples. All Black peoples, were referred to as Ethiopians, oftentimes symbolically. So when we talk about Ethiopia, there's a special connection there, just in terms as Marcus Garvey was kind of speaking on to that symbolic history um, as it related there. And so I think that that's an important thing, to note, Brother Kamal. But I think also it's important to note as well, when you're looking at the African situation, the Black situation, globally during the times of the 1920s, and I think this was, alluded to you as well. The entire race was essentially, colonized and oppressed in some fashion. The entire continent, most all the countries were under European rule. All Black populations within the diaspora were either within within slavery, or just kind of leaving slavery and kind of going to that next step there. So I think that that's really important to note when now you have an independent, Black kingdom, and why that had so much symbolic meaning to not only the diaspora but to the rest of the continent. So when you hear speeches or hear wording or hear common, you know, talking from that time, when you actually go read the newspapers, read the speeches, when they say, look to Ethiopia, wake up Ethiopia, it makes sense. And I still think that's something that has to be highlighted, and that has to be uplifted as well. When we look at kind of some of the different ways Pan-Africanism is interpreted, and the role that Ethiopianism has to play in that as well. So it does seem like we have temporarily lost Kamal on the stream. I will kind of keep chugging through. But I did want to get an opportunity to share the flyer here. So let me see if I can get that done. Well, maybe I'll wait till Kamal gets back and I'll share that. But we'll kind of just keep going through some of these questions that we had to kind of just continue to speak on the MGB project and Marcus Garvey as well. So I think a good place to kind of go from here is when we talk about Ethiopia now, we also have the opportunity to kind of talk about the African Union and why it's so important for the Marcus Garvey bronze to be erected on the soil of the African Union. So some of the leaders that we did mention, before, we mentioned Kwame Nkrumah, Kwame Nkrumah. We mentioned Emperor Haile Selassie. Both of these figures, major figures in the Pan-African realm, have had statues erected on the AU. And so I think that now, as Garveyism is kind of coming back into the fore, really strong Pan-African thought is coming back into the fore, we would be remiss to not actually have Marcus Garvey, on the soil of the African Union. And so like now there's a lot of individuals kind of consider that the big three. They consider those three gentlemen the big three: Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, and Haile Selassie. So now that kind of paints an image of what's necessary in terms of that engagement as well. And so I did just get word that Kamal is going to be joining us back in about 2 minutes. We're just having some minor technical difficulties, which is quite fine within the information age. I think we have to be pretty flexible in understanding that different things are going to happen, and that's all part of it. It is indeed. But what I would like to do is to actually get to a point to where I can share my screen for you all so that you can see the flyer. And so let me just continue to work on getting that ready. And then from there, all right. So let's see, let's try to share my screen. So this here is the Marcus Garvey bronze flyer. And so what we have is, as we noted, join us in the creation of the Marcus Garvey bronze sculpture. The first statue of Marcus Garvey erected on the continent, officially endorsed by the Garvey estate, bringing the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, grandfather of Pan-Africanism, home to Africa, the continent he loved. So sculpted by the renowned Nigel Lloyd Benz. Donate at MarcusGarveyBronze.com. And here we actually have a showcasing of what the bust will look like. This is, of course, before the bronzing process, but this was, a showcasing of the bust, which is very, very important. I think this is probably one of the highest level statues.
So
that we
I
have.
believe I'm back. Can you hear me, Miles?
I hear you. Were you able to
see
the screen?
We didn't see the screen. No one could see the screen. So maybe.
Oh wait.
I think Dima has to green light it or something. You can share.
Can you see it now?
No, I believe that Dima has to do something just to green light it. I'm not sure if she's available. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
But one thing we'll see if we can get it posted on the Africa Week 2020 page. That could be helpful. If we're not able to get it on during this panel. I do think our panel is coming to a close kind of soon, because we had an hour. We started a little bit later. Not sure how that's going to go. Not sure exactly how much time that we have. I believe we started around maybe 9:10 or so. So we got about 10 or 15 minutes left, I believe.
Yeah. And I think we have a few more questions. If you wanted to get a little bit more in depth to a few things.
I did want to. I want to thank the people for commenting. Anyone who's watching on the Africa Week Live page, we have been seeing a few comments go around. Sister Imani and some others. If you do have any comments or questions, please feel free to type them in. You can ask them, and maybe we can answer some of the audience questions. I see we do have some people viewing, so if you have any questions or comments, please share them with us. In the meantime, like Miles said, we do have a few more questions that we wanted to go over. I think you did a great job, Miles, answering that question about the importance of Garvey and Ethiopia. Uh, and essentially, Garvey, uh, the Ethiopianism movement, which was a movement that was going on for hundreds of years in the West, is essentially a movement where Ethiopia was looked at as a symbolic representation of Africa's redemption soon to come. And so a lot of the people who were part of the Garvey movement, they were steeped in this tradition of Ethiopianism. And so um, it was activated, if you will, during the Garvey movement. Um, it became something more than just something that was talked about in churches and from that spiritual aspect, but also from a practical organizing and political and economic aspect. So that's where you have the spiritual zeal of the Ethiopianism being manifest in actually building and creating of independent enterprises and the coming together of African people. And so I did want to make that point. Now, how else can the public, a good question is, how else can the public be of assistance in addition to donating? And I would say that right now we are in the process of onboarding volunteers to help with the project. We do have, like I said, the Marcus Garvey Coordinating Committee. We have about 7 or 8 people on that committee, but we need more hands on deck to do everything that we need to do. We need people to make phone calls asking for donations. We need to make people to email and to keep track of donations. We need people to give out thank you cards and to make sure that we're um, getting out all of our gifts for people for donating. Because we have different tiers. Like I said, you can get your name on a plaque, but there's other things. I can't think of all of them at the moment. Sorry. But there's other levels. For the $250 level, there's incentives. For the $500 level, incentives. And even at the $100 level, there are some incentives. And so you can check out our website where we explain all of that. Uh, and we need people to call and say thank you for those who give donations. Um, we're going to need some more marketing material. We need a video. We need people to write articles on the importance. Um, Miles, can you think of some others?
Yeah, I think you kind of are tapping into a lot of the the core like groundwork that's necessary. But I think the biggest thing, well, not biggest, but one of the the primary things here is also you're spreading the word. When we're in this interesting place, especially here in the diaspora, where different statues are being taken down. Statues that represent a part of history that a lot of people feel like shouldn't be highlighted um, are being removed. And it's like now, when one statue is removed or statues are removed, what type of statues do we put up? And so I think that now with the Marcus Garvey Bronze, we provide an example of the heroes of the Black racemen that we should be really uplifting and showcasing, as it will kind of help us guide us into the future. So that being said, just continue word of mouth engagement with us and our page, continued engagement with the ideals of Marcus Garvey. I can't see it on my camera right now, but I wanted to speak on the book um, situation as well. So right now I have the Marcus Garvey and the Vision of Africa in my hand, which has been a really, really powerful book, which kind of goes through Marcus Garvey's life, what he did from different perspectives of different people. And so now I think Kamal can kind of speak on how we're engaging with books in various bookstores and how supporting the purchase of books, as well as it can help us with the project.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Miles. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
We are partnering with Sankofa Bookstore here in Washington, D.C. to, they are donating 10% of the proceeds for all the books that we sell on Marcus Garvey to the Marcus Garvey Bronze Sculpture Project. And so if you go to sankofa.com and you purchase a book on Garvey, or if you come into the store, physical store, and you buy a book on Garvey, we're keeping track of that, and 10% of those sales are going to go towards the Marcus Garvey Bronze Project. Now, what we want to educate the public on Marcus Garvey. Another thing that we're doing is we're developing a playlist on Spotify and possibly YouTube to compile various songs that mention Garvey or have a Garvey focus, and just to get some enthusiasm around the project. And so we just have to do creative things. We're trying to get it out, get the word out to some VIPs, people with some high level donors in our community. So if you know any, please send them the link. Please feel free to reach out to us. Uh, MarcusGarveyBronze.com. Other ways to reach out. Um,
Email. We have marcusgarveybronze@gmail.com as
yes,
well.
MarcusGarveyBronze@gmail.com. And you want to give them the Google Voice number?
Sure. So we actually have two numbers there. So the one I'll read both of them if that's all right with you, Kamal.
Yeah.
All right. So we have 202-798-1645, and that will get you in direct contact with Kamal. And then to reach myself, 202-798-1829. We're available to answer any questions, and to continue to talk about the project. Most definitely.
Okay, excellent. They said that there is a picture of the bronze on the Africa Week 2020 page. Okay,
Excellent.
and thank you, Sister Imani. She said she would love to make her and her husband would love to make phone calls asking for donations. I can email thank you messages. All right, just make sure we get a contact. Make sure we get your contact. I guess we have you on Facebook. Is that a good way to contact you, Sister Imani? Contacting you on Facebook?
Thank you.
And she typed
Perfect.
in the email as
Perfect.
well. So I'm sure we'll be able to get in contact. Let's make sure that we stay in contact, Sister Imani. Whether you call us or email us, just reach out. So yeah, thank you. I mean, if anything, I'll say this conversation is a success. We got another two volunteers. This has been a little bit interesting and unconventional of a conversation. But it's been a fruitful one. We want to
Absolutely.
we want to give
Absolutely.
thanks to Dima Mahmoud and the organizers of Africa Week 2020 for inviting us to participate in this conversation, and we are pleased to be here, and we are pleased to have this conversation with you all. So I think we have a couple more questions, but we're just about done. It says we've been on for 58 minutes. I think the last question that we would like to ask is, I think we may have asked all the questions.
Yeah, I think we
I
got
think we
them.
actually got to all the questions. Okay, I think the last question that we kind of alluded to, but I will get into this is, why is it important for Marcus Garvey to be honored at the African Union? And I'm going to couple that with this question: who are the big three, and how does?
Oh, Kamal. I mean, you can answer it, but when you were off for that time, that's the question I did jump into.
Oh
But I mean,
no.
but feel free.
Okay, well, you answered the big three question.
I did, yes.
Okay, so the big three: Haile Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah, and Marcus Garvey. So that's another reason why it would be important to bring Marcus Garvey at the African Union, because then you would have the big three there at the African Union. And then the importance of the African Union is that at this point, the African Union is the premier Pan-African governmental body. And we don't have any more robust Pan-African governmental body than the African Union. And so by infusing Garvey into the African Union, Garvey was an inspiration, was a indirect inspiration for the African Union. That's first of all. And then secondly, we want to inspire those legislators and those presidents, those heads of state, and the people with the African Union Commission, those civil servants. We want to inspire them to think in a mindset of self-reliance and also engaging the diaspora, and not just the recent diaspora, but those of us who have been here for hundreds of years through the transatlantic slave trade process. We want to be more engaged in the continent, and so in the continent's affairs. Recently, some years ago, maybe I think 2012 is when they declared that the diaspora is the sixth region of Africa: north, south, east, west, central, and then sixth region is the diaspora. And they spelled out what the diaspora was, and you know, it didn't just mean Nigerians who are abroad, or South Africans who are abroad and their children. It's the people who were ripped from Africa as well, and those of us who, yes, we may have American citizenship, but we have African heritage, and so we are the sixth region. And so it's very important to have Garvey up front, center and central, so that those things are not forgotten, because oftentimes we are treated or viewed similarly in a way of a stepchild, or just donors. So, and that's not right. Just it's not right. I'll just leave it at that. Just because some of us may not identify with Africa, there's a reasons for that. Years of trying to separate us from our heritage, but many of us are yearning for that connection, and that door, it needs to be open. Um, and so, yeah, that's what we're doing here with this Marcus Garvey Bronze project. We are opening that door. We are making sure that door stays open, and making sure that anyone who walks into the African Union will see, in the main hall, they will see Marcus Garvey. They will see Jamaica. They will see United States. They will see our contribution, Europe, the Africans in Europe, the Africans in Central America, the Africans outside of Africa. Our contribution needs to be, um, you know, viewed, and not just something that's looked at, but something that's called upon, and we want to be engaged in the day-to-day workings.
Yeah, I think that's really well stated, Kamal. That's really really well stated. So I appreciate that viewpoint you provided there.
Yeah, I think that we're just about to close. We don't really have much more. Only thing I would say is this effort is building on efforts before it. Last year there was the 2019 Ghana Year of Return, and so that's a renewed uh, legacy of Garvey there. Africans going to Africa. That was Garvey's whole thing. Some historians have minimized Garvey's legacy to only being about the Back to Africa movement, and but that's not all he was about. But that was a large thing, repatriation, but bringing skilled people, bringing resources from the West, bringing our technical know-how, and um, not going with any type of hubris or anything like that, but going there looking to be a servant of the people, and also to help Africa compete in this modern age, right? So that's one thing that we're doing. All these skills that we're gaining in the West and utilizing for these large corporations, we need to keep those skills, and we need to bring those skills back to Africa. So that's what this is about.
100%. 100%. I think on that note, Brother Kamal, if you don't have anything else to add, I'm clear. I think, again, just letting the people know they can donate at marcusgarveybronze.com, also at Pan-African Technical Association.com.
No, that's not the website. It's pataus.org.
Excuse me, pataus.org. to make any donations, reaching out for anyone who wants to support. Yeah, and I think that this has been very fruitful. I look forward to kind of engaging with those who kind of left comments as well. So, kind of sad that we had some technical difficulties with the video, but we worked through it. So, looking forward to many more engagements. And again, thank you to Africa Week. Always a pleasure.
Yes, we do what we do, regardless of the technical difficulties, regardless of any difficulties that we have, we push through. And like I said, we are well on our way to doing this. And don't forget, we do have the tour in Ethiopia. Some of you may be interested in visiting Ethiopia next August. And so reach out to us on that level as well. It's going to be a wonderful experience. So, like Miles said, thank you to the organizers. Thank you for the invitation. And we just move forward. And it's only up from here. Africa for the Africans, those at home and abroad. One God, one aim, one destiny. And we are out with that. So take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.